Welcome to Wesley Impact. I'm Keith Garner. When you're at wit's end, who do you turn to? What if that person was not there? What would you do? I'd like to welcome you to Wesley Impact and the start of a 5-episode series when we'll look at a cross-section of our work over the next 5 weeks. Starting this week, we'll look at Lifeline and some of the work Wesley Mission is doing in crisis care. Next week, we'll be looking at how we're providing food for the homeless, and after that, our financial counselling work. Then we'll go outdoors and look at our work with children at Wesley Vision Valley. And in the final week of that series, we'll also focus on the various ways Wesley Mission is empowering members of our community to help us to raise funds we need to be able to keep our programmes going. I hope you're going to be able to join us over the next 5 weeks. But this week, I'll be speaking with Saunders, a member of the Wesley Mission family who's been volunteering at Wesley Lifeline. We'll also hear from Craig Gower, who's going to sing softly and tenderly, and I'll be sharing some thinking on Matthew 5. As we're considering a cross-section of our work, I'm matching this series of 5 by digging into the wonderful words of the Sermon on the Mount, which are both inspirational and practical when applied to living out a word and deed ministry. Today we acknowledge how Lifeline began and how it expanded to help people in crisis all around the world. This is the first part of our Lifeline story.
Hello, this is Lifeline. Can I help you?
John Citizen, anonymous statistic. Cause of death, suicide whilst of unsound mind. John Citizen lost all hope. He thought that no one cared. It didn't have to happen.
Well, I gotta get the world off of my back. Oh, pretty soon I'm gonna crack.
I can't go on any longer. I'm here with 7 children in the house and we've nothing to eat.
I came from the country 3 months ago. Don't know anybody.
I'm 64 years old. I'm nearly blind and I'm alone.
The Lifeline movement began as a vision really under the leadership of the then Reverend Alan Walker from Wesley Mission, and he was essentially being inundated with calls to his home from people in distress.
What's the point of it when you're alone and there's no one? I got down this far to the phone, but now there's nothing to do except go back again. What's the point?
I received it late one Saturday night from a fellow who gave his name only as Roy. He said, "I've just written you a letter. When you get it, I'll be dead." I got a ring from the Darlington's police saying we found the body of a man, Roy Brown, with a letter on his chest in a gas-filled room at King's Cross. Do you know him? It's addressed to you, that letter. So we buried Roy Brown, a lonely 38-year-old Australian. The only people at the funeral were Wynne, my wife, and the undertaker and myself. But that really projected us into finding an answer to this lonely Sydney.
He called some parishioners to his home in Roseville and said, look, what will I do? I want to help these people. Let's brainstorm, let's think, let's pray about how we can best support these people in need. And the idea came up, you know, wouldn't it be good if we had a central place where people could ring in and get the help they need 24 hours? And they came up with this idea of the Lifeline telephone counselling service.
And then after organising everything, what will we call it? Someone said Lifeline. This is a lifeline. Throw out the lifeline. You know the hymn? Throw out the lifeline, yeah. Someone is thinking today.
Lifeline was born when we discovered the power of the telephone.
It was the 16th of March, 1963.
A new £40,000 Lifeline Centre is opened in Sydney by Lord Mayor Jensen. The centre, a project of the Methodist Central Mission, will maintain a 24 hours a day service to people who want help, and particularly people with emotional problems.
My wife and I were involved. We did the training, which was very simple in those days. We were counsellors for 23.5 years.
The H2SF, car 1 to base. We're here. We'll check the berth at the eastern end first. Over and out.
Alan wrote a book, How Jesus Helped People, and that was our basic training. And that's how we started. We were rather naive, but I believe we helped many, many people.
If you would like to see more of the work of Wesley Mission, visit wesleymission.org.au. You can watch loads more videos, catch up on past episodes of Wesley Impact TV, find out about our diverse range of services, and get involved to help make a positive difference in your community. You can also connect with us on social media and stay up to date on the latest news and information from Wesley Mission. wesleymission.org.au.
Joining us today is someone who certainly knows Lifeline from the inside. Di Saunders has been volunteering as a crisis counsellor at Lifeline for the past 10 years. Over that time, she's taken calls from some of the most desperate people imaginable, people who feel they're at the end of themselves. Di, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about how you first got involved in Lifeline.
I was in my 20s and I started to volunteer at Lifeline in Melbourne because I'm originally from Melbourne. And I found I became very passionate about caring for others and listening to people's stories over the phone and just supporting them in their time of need.
And then you came back, as it were, when you were in Sydney,
Yes.
to work with Wesley at Lifeline.
Yes, that's right. So later on, after I had my family and that, and Lifeline set up a centre in Sutherland or in Sylvania, and I felt that it was a good time and I had the opportunity to start again. So I did the training again, and 10, 11 years later, I'm still at Lifeline with that real passion.
So what is it, the source of the passion? What is it that draws you to do it?
Just interested in people and care for people and listening to their stories. I want to make a difference to their life, to their crisis, the here and now, to be empathetic to them.
I suppose when you're on the phone, I mean, this is one thing where you know you actually do make a difference. So in some places you may not, but there are times when you must be able to sense this is actually changing their situation. It's that important.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, you mightn't do much, but just listening to them, and at the end of the call they'll thank you, or you can hear the difference in their voice and how it's just changed and they sound a little lighter.
And how has it changed down the years, the kind of people who ring in and call and that kind of thing?
I don't think anything's really changed. I mean, we still have people that ring in with mental illness and relationship problems. We really have a good training in suicide prevention, so we support a lot of people that may have suicidal thoughts at the time. So it really hasn't really changed.
And tell me, I mean, it's very difficult. You must have answered thousands of calls, but is there any that stick in your mind as being gosh, I remember that call?
Sometimes some calls really do stay with you for a while. People that just feel like they've got nothing to live for, they've lost everything. I find a lot of the calls that really stay with me a lot, people that are suffering a loss, real grief, and it mightn't be because a loved one has passed away. It might be a loss of a relationship or of anything, or employment, or they've just got nothing to live for. So there's a lot of grief involved, and I find those sort of calls really stay with me.
And I suppose really, because I know that this is part of how you sometimes have to unload yourself as a counsellor when you've been dealing with that kind of thing, don't you?
Most definitely, and we really have a very good support there at Lifeline for us to debrief and to support each other there. We've got very good professional staff and ongoing training as well.
Yeah, and you're trying all the time to get new volunteers for Lifeline. Yes. Not everybody could be a volunteer, but perhaps more people than think they could do it probably could do it.
Yes, yes. People that care about people's welfare, people that think they can really do listen, because we really do teach people how to really listen, to actively listen to other people.
And listen to the deeper things that somebody might be saying, rather than just the presenting words, as it were.
Yeah, it's not superficial, it's really deep. Yeah.
Well, do you remember your first call?
No. Oh, well, the first shift I did have here in Sydney, I had a couple of calls that did have suicidal thoughts, and yes, that did stay with me, but nothing particular.
But probably you have to, at the same time, not take the responsibility all on your own shoulders when you're dealing with a situation. You want to be as helpful as you can, but it's not down to you in the end what happens, is it?
No, we're there for the immediate support, and then we refer them on. So we're known as the crisis intervention line. So we deal with people's issues that they're suffering here and now, and then we refer them on to other people that can support them.
And I don't want to be negative, but the truth is sometimes you may not be able to do as much as you'd like to for somebody.
Correct, yes, yeah. So we're there just to listen, and sometimes we can't really make them feel better. Just to listen and to relieve that stress. And you find that they do feel they've been listened to, and they're able to move on just that little bit better.
And maybe in a change of tone of voice, the way that the conversation goes on. And how long do those calls last? Do they vary, or? They
can vary. Normally about 20 minutes, 40 minutes.
Really?
But if someone's in real crisis, like suicide prevention or that, it could last a little bit longer than that, over an hour or so. But generally speaking, 20 to 40 minutes.
Well, look, we're delighted to talk to you, and particularly we thank God for people like yourselves that see this as part of your response and service in a way to God and to the community. And that really is important. And we pray that more people might take up the challenge. So this is down to people out there. If this is something that you feel you could do, why not respond to that challenge and become a Lifeline counsellor? Di, thanks for coming along today.
Thank you.
To sing a song that might perhaps reflect something of the love of God that Di seeks to pass on to people who want to call Lifeline, we welcome now Craig Gower to sing Softly and Tenderly.
Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling for you and for me. See on the portals, he's waiting and watching for you and for me. Come home, come home. All who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, oh sinner, come home. And oh, for this wonderful life he has promised for you and for me. And though we have sinned, he has mercy and pardon for you and for me. Come home, come home. All who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling.
It's been 200 years since the first Methodists met in Australia. To celebrate 2 centuries of faith and pioneering care, CEO and presenter Rev Dr Keith Garner takes us back to where it all began.
But we don't begin here at the heart of London. We begin in a town in the north of England.
In this fascinating narrative, Rev Garner chronicles the history of the life and times of the founder of Methodism, John Wesley. This fresh and thought-provoking documentary takes us on a journey throughout the United Kingdom, beginning in John Wesley's hometown of Epworth.
John Wesley was born here on the 17th of June, 1703.
This 1-hour DVD travels onto his education years and beginnings of social justice in Oxford, to his final years in London. For more information on John Wesley, the man and his mission, call 02 9263 5555 or email us at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
And here's that very DVD, worth getting hold of. I'm very proud because I know I'm in it and I know I present it, but really the guys behind it have got some fantastic scenes, and it really does get us to know a little bit more about the real John Wesley. Now, there's no extended passage, at least I don't think so, in the New Testament that's had such a powerful influence as what we describe as the Sermon on the Mount, in between chapters 5 and 7 in Matthew's Gospel. The sermon, or rather a collection of various things that Jesus said, gives us an insight into the nature of Christian living as lived on the practical edge. I rarely commend a book as giving practical insight on the Sermon on the Mount as much as I do John Stott's The Message of the Sermon on the Mount, which is still a bestseller, an enormous help for people wanting to really understand what Jesus had to say. So I want to read to you certainly some of the early part of this sermon in what we know as the Beatitudes today, in Matthew 5, 3 through to verse 12. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. There's something uniquely fascinating about these words of Jesus as they gather together the heart of his teaching. It was Stott in that book who said of the Sermon on the Mount that it makes goodness attractive. It shames our shabby performance. It engenders dreams of a better world. Now, these words may well be well known to us, but it doesn't mean to say that they're easily understood, let alone obeyed. A number of things from it. Different people in different circumstances are described. That's why I like the way it goes through all those different things that people may find themselves having to face, whether they're mourning or whether they're facing the question of what real strength is about, whether they're trying to discover what it means to be merciful. Now, the abiding qualities described in the Sermon on the Mount are those things which make a difference to the way people live their lives. If only we just grasp the promises of Jesus, if we could grasp the blessing that is God's in the different circumstances in which we find ourselves, then we'll discover the difference. God's promise is so very real, especially in the circumstances people have to face. Now, if the followers of Jesus are to be different, and we are meant to be light, we are meant to be salt, then the qualities that must be found in our life must mark out a very special way and a very special spiritual distinctiveness. The Sermon on the Mount, and the Beatitudes in particular, give us a complete picture of how and where the Christian should be making that difference. Now, Sermon on the Mount. How do you really describe those Beatitudes? Well, they're the nature, they're the picture, they're, if you like, a portrait of what Jesus is really like. If you read them and you pick them together, that picture of the sermon, the comfort that's there, the righteousness that's there. And I think that one of the challenging things is that when it comes to the end of those things that we're blessed for, it tells us to rejoice and be very glad, because what persecution we have to face in our lives is very similar to the persecution that those that have gone before us have had to face. So when you look at this Sermon on the Mount, you're challenged. You can't help but be challenged. When you look at the Beatitudes, you say to yourself, how do I best understand it? But look at the word, beatitude. Be-attitude. This is how we must be. This is how we must look. If only these things were seen in our lives, what a difference it would make. This is what salt and light really means in the world. When the lifestyles of people and the characteristics of the way they live their lives are seen hour by hour and day by day. And the truth is that we are blessed. One writer who was writing about the Beatitude said really that we are blessed when we are these things. And he said that's a good way of reading this particular Beatitude. You're blessed when you're poor in spirit. Well, who'd want to say that? Who'd want to be poor? But Jesus is saying you're blessed when you're in those places, because in those places you know something of the kingdom of heaven. You're blessed when you mourn. Gosh, nobody wants to mourn, but God is saying those are the places in which we might find the strength and the grace of God that makes such an enormous difference in the way that we live our lives and the way in which we can change the world. We've listened today to someone who's been telling us a little of what it means to be a Lifeline counsellor with us at Wesley Mission. When it began at Wesley Mission, it began very much in a crisis situation. But as we heard today from Di, and as we hear very often when we talk to those counsellors, mental health issues are one of the greatest challenges that we face. People who somehow feel in their lives that they're reaching out sometimes for that which way they do not even know. So really, the Beatitudes, the characteristics that make up for the best kind of Christian living is that which will make the difference to such people and will help us to see that all of us are throwing out a lifeline day by day to the people who live around us and beside us. And we do want to be blessed. We do want to be a people who make that difference. And the only way that that can happen is when we recognise that there's a connection with the situation and places that we find ourselves in and what we can hold out and reach out to other people with. Well, I just think the Sermon on the Mount is amazing. And what a way to begin. I mean, if you were talking about the beginning of a sermon, having to have something that grasps people's attention, there couldn't be anything else better than this. I mean, one writer talking about the Beatitudes said they turned the world's values upside down. Isn't that an amazing thought? We have our values. We have our values not only at Wesley Mission, but in so many different areas and aspects of life. And what I think Jesus is saying is our values, our picture, our priorities, the things we seek to count as the most valuable are turned upside down, because the things that we value are not those things that are here mourning, hungering and thirsting in situations where we need to be shown mercy. Those are not the things we value the highest. We often talk about the things we gain. It seems like Jesus talks about the things we lose, but he says in those places you're blessed, because in those places we are the people, the Christians, who are making a difference in the world in which we live, and nothing could be a greater contribution.
If you would like to contact Keith and find out more about today's program, write to us at Wesley Mission, Post Office Box A5555, Sydney South 1235. Or you can send an email to impacttv@wesleymission.org.au. On our website, you can catch up on past episodes of Wesley Impact, find out more about our work, read online magazines and articles, and connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also connect to Keith's blog and stay up to date on all of the latest news and information from Wesley Mission. wesleymission.org.au.
Thank you for joining us today. Now, please don't hesitate to write and be in touch if you've got questions or comments that emerge after watching today's programme. And please don't forget that Lifeline is staffed with qualified counsellors 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. If you ever feel that you need someone to talk to, I know of nowhere better to turn than to Lifeline on 13 11 14. 13 11 14. And don't forget, you can watch this and past episodes of Wesley Impact on Wesley Mission website, wesleymission.org.au, and you can email us at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au. See you next week, same time, for another episode of Wesley Impact. God bless you.
Wesley Mission answers more than 25,000 calls through Lifeline each year. To find out more, visit wesleymission.org.au.